Welcome into 2-4 Drafts. Austin Gayle here with Mike Renner, ready to give you a wide receiver class overview for the 2020 NFL Draft. We are live on YouTube, or you also can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Wherever you get your podcasts, Mike and I are there. But to get back to what we're doing today, I think we have 27 receivers we want to go over for the 2020 NFL Draft wide receiver class overview.
Better be ready for some goddamn wide receiver.
This is a lot. I mean, people talk about this class being very good. It's top heavy. I think there's 5-6 guys that could go in the first round. There's that good of receivers in this class, but also it's very deep. There's a ton of receivers that'll be there on day 2, even day 3, that offer value in this class. All 27 of these guys will be in the 2020 NFL Draft Guide update on February 24th for our Edge and Elite subscribers. So we're going to dive into these guys now. Let's start
That's
with.
If I finish it in time.
You better finish it in time, Mike. We don't have time for you to be making mistakes. All right, Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, the top 2 guys in this class. CeeDee Lamb right now is PFF's #1 receiver in the 2020 NFL Draft.
It'll change.
It might change?
Monday.
It's going to change on Monday?
Yeah.
Why is it going to change?
It's just the more I dug in, the more I just think I'd rather have Jerry Jeudy. If I'm like just being completely honest, Jerry Jeudy, Jerry Jeudy, the speed aspect is just different than what it is for CeeDee Lamb. And that in and of itself in the NFL today is a weapon. Lamb, more complete wide receiver. Jeudy, the speed, give me that.
Yes.
So he's going back to number.
Jerry Jeudy is taking over CeeDee Lamb for the top spot. You heard it here first. You'll see it live on Monday. But Jerry Jeudy over CeeDee Lamb in PFF's latest wide receiver rankings, according to PFF_Mike.
And that's final. And I think you'll see at the Combine next week what they both run. One's going to be freakish. One's going to be just good.
Yep.
I think so. Yeah.
All right, for Jerry Jeudy, now the #1 receiver in PFF according to PFF's rankings, and CeeDee Lamb at number 2. Anything else you want to add there for these two guys? I guess give me a breakdown of both.
I would say we've touched on them a ton. Obviously, we've touched on the top of this class a lot at the wide receiver position. But Jeudy, the worries about him, or like the reservations are, is a lot from the slot, a lot of scheme production. But when you do see him on the outside, you do see him against press coverage. Guys don't even touch him. He's just so quick at the line of scrimmage. Like we've said it before, he moves differently. Like it's the way he moves now is a little knock-kneed, like it's a little RG3 to him in terms of just his legs kind of flail. But and we worry about getting injured at his size, but like guys don't even touch him, so he's not going to get hit a lot. So I think he's very versatile, still very young, not even 21 years old yet. So there's a lot to like there.
And I think when you say moves differently, he moves differently in the SEC. You talk about Deontay Johnson for Toledo last year. You said this guy moves differently, but it's easier to move different at that level of competition in the MAC. I think with Jerry Jeudy, what he does against other SEC caliber players, SEC caliber talents, athletes, is incredible because he makes these guys look absolutely foolish before and after the catch.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as I think a lot of the SEC pumping up in terms of their rankings throughout the season can get overblown. When you're playing in an SEC competition, the guys you're playing against will play in the NFL. It's just like that for the most part. You can't say that about the Big Ten. You can't say it about the Big 12. You can't say it about the middle tier teams in all those conferences. Are not loaded with NFL talent. They still are in the SEC. That's the biggest difference to me. And so when we say that, we're not being SEC homers. It's just the talent is different. It is a different level of talent that you're facing there in that conference.
I would agree with you 100%. And let's jump to CeeDee Lamb, too. I mean, with CeeDee Lamb, it's not bad that he's going to number 2. This guy is still a top receiver in this class, a top 10 player on PFF's overall draft board. And I was talking to Sam Monson about it. He likes Jerry Jeudy a lot as well, with CeeDee Lamb right there with Jerry Jeudy. With CeeDee Lamb, he does a lot of things very well. But I don't know if any of those things are like Jerry Jeudy does separation and ability to catch at a level you just don't see in college football.
Yeah, Lamb, it's not even like a knock on him that he's behind Jerry Jeudy. It's like these are 2 of the best wide receiver prospects we've ever graded. Like they're absurd.
Yep.
His after the catch ability, 26 broken tackles on 62 catches. Like the screen he took to the house against Kansas State was ridiculous. Almost took them all the way back in that game. He's the highlight reel. You have one-handed catches left and right. You have him, Moss and dudes at the catch point. There just really is not a lot of things he does poorly, and he has good size as well at 6'2". So yeah, CeeDee Lamb, very much. I mean, you're getting 2 #1. I feel very confident saying there's 2 #1 wide receivers in this class, like day one, and they are them.
Yep. I am 100% with you. Like you said, we talked about both of these guys a ton. Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, both elite talents in this draft class. Right after them, though, number 3 is Laviska Shenault of Colorado, a guy that I see outside of the top 5 in some PFF, some wide receiver rankings for other media outlets and evaluators, but right now at number 3 for PFF.
Yeah, it's because he's so special athletically. Like he's 6'2", 220. And he's probably going to run somewhere in the low 4.4s, maybe even break 4.4. Probably going to jump around 40 inches. He's just, when he gets the ball, he's a threat to take it to the house every single time, and is built like a running back the way he can break tackles after the catch. He is more offensive weapon than he is pure wide receiver at this point. But I think some of the, you can develop as a wide receiver. You can develop your route running when you're as athletically gifted as Laviska Shenault is. You can't go from being a talented route runner to being as athletically gifted as Laviska Shenault is.
I mean, and that's why it goes back to why evaluators evaluate traits. Look at a guy's athleticism, his ability to change direction, his ability to separate, looking at those specific traits, because Laviska Shenault's role in 2018 was wildly different than what his role is in 2019. Evaluating his production or how he performed on the field can be difficult because what he plays at the next level, I think, is going to be very different than what he played this past year. He played almost exclusively outside receiver at Colorado in 2019 due to injuries. He said that. He said coaches did not want to put him in harm's way after all the injuries he did suffer and surgeries he went through. He played majority outside receiver. That's not where he's going to excel at the next level, in my opinion. He could get better as a route runner, maybe see a primary outside receiving role later in his career. But out of the gate, this guy's going to play a Cordarrelle Patterson, offensive weapon type of role where he's in the backfield, in the slot, playing some outside, getting involved on special teams because, like you said, he's a legit athlete, and that's just not going away.
Yeah, broke 29 tackles back in 2018 on 87 catches. That was the most of any guy in the draft class has had in any year. So it's pretty good stuff.
I would agree with you 100%. Let's go to Henry Ruggs, number 4, the number 4 receiver in this class. Still a top 20 player on PFF's latest draft board. Unless that's changing too, Mike. Don't you change too much on me here. But Henry Ruggs at number 4, I think, again, and I think people are catching on, Henry Ruggs is just not he's not just a deep threat. This guy's a good route runner. I think he got great as a route runner late in the season specifically. I mean, you watch this tape. I say it every time when I bring up Henry Ruggs. Watch his tape against LSU.
Yeah.
Watch his tape against Christian Fulton. You're going to see a guy that can create separation against what could be a first-round cornerback in the NFL in Christian Fulton. He does it with great change of direction, sets up his routes well, and he's got stupid speed. This guy could run in the 4.2s come Indy.
Yeah, he's very much so. The straight line explosiveness is as good as it gets in this class. Like, he is as fast as it gets in this class. Why he didn't produce more down the football field and at Alabama, 744 yards this past year, only 40 catches. There's something to be there's a question mark to be asked there. Why he wasn't more featured? You had Jerry Jeudy, you had Devonta Smith, but if he's really that special, and I do think if you're putting him as wide receiver 1, you're almost doing it to be contrarian. If you're putting him over Jerry Jeudy, considering the production both had. Jerry Jeudy, 2,400 yards past 2 years. Henry Ruggs only 1,400 over the past 2 years. There's if you're on the same team and one guy's vastly outproducing the other, usually one guy is the superior prospect. But there is a lot to like. He's still the 4th-ranked wide receiver on our board. He's only dropped 5 passes on 103 catchable his entire college career.
His ball skills are very good. I like his ball skills.
He's taken 24 of his 98 catches to the house for a touchdown. So probably could have even had more yards. If it's he's running into the end zone on a lot of these plays. He very much is a big play threat. After the catch is great, but I don't think he's quite on the level of the guys in front of him.
Judy and Lamb.
I don't think he's as special after the catch as Laviska is, and I don't think he's near the route runner, or even close to the route runner to Judy or Lamb.
I think I'm with you there. I will say this about the argument or with Henry Ruggs, and he doesn't have the production, compared to Jerry Jeudy, whatever it is. These guys were playing rock, paper, scissors for who was going to get the deep ball before plays. You've seen that clip where they're literally hey, who's getting the deep ball? Oh, it's Jerry Jeudy this time. That's where it's going. These guys
Maybe
are
just
toying.
Sucks at rock, paper, scissors.
So here's the take. Collins in PFF's latest draft guide. Be tuned for the February 24th update. He can't win rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Henry Ruggs, and that's all mental, baby. Rock, paper, scissors, people think it's luck. A lot of that's mental. Setting up your rocks, setting up your scissors, never go paper because you're not a bitch.
What you emphasize when you're,
Anyway, there's my take on rock, paper, scissors. Moving forward from Henry Ruggs, I do think he's a special player, improving as a route runner. I'm not going to buy into he didn't have the same production or whatever. I do think from a traits perspective, this guy's fantastic. Not the same level after the catch as Laviska, and I do think Judy and Lamb are different levels from a route running perspective. But Henry Ruggs, still very good. Like we said, top 20 player in the 2020 NFL Draft. Let's jump to T. Higgins.
Yep, T. Higgins is the big wide receiver in this class. You look at Lamb, Jeudy, Shenault, Ruggs, Reagor, Ayuk, Mims, all those guys, the other guys we mentioned that are going to be in our top 10 rankings here, not a single one, I think, over 6'2" of those. Henry Ruggs at 6'4", 215, or T. Higgins, excuse me, at 6'4", 215, has that size, has that contested catch ability. Him and Trevor Lawrence, the back shoulder combo was always there. He called in 15 of his 23 deep targets this year. That was crazy absurd in terms of the efficiency he showed down the football field. Some of that's obviously having a generational QB throwing you the football.
Yep.
But he has that. He's not just a possession type of wide receiver. He has speed. He has after the catch ability. 59 catches each of the past 2 seasons. He's broken double-digit tackles on those catches, which is that's good for a bigger wide receiver. It's not. You're never going to be on the level of a Shenault at 6'4", but that's still very good. The fact that he can do something, he can create after the catch on someone.
Yeah, I really do love what T. Higgins brings to the table. I said this. I don't think he separates on the same level as Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, but what he does do very well is ball skills, contested catchability. That shows up time and time again with how he attacks the football in the air. Moving forward here, let's go to Jalen Reagor of TCU. We've talked about Jalen at length on this podcast, and largely because special from a traits perspective. His 2018 season really showed that both on the film and in production. From a production standpoint, really great after the catch, dynamic receiver, legit 4.3 speed. I think he's going to impress people at the combine. A deep threat that I think was limited at TCU. I don't think they used him as I would have used him in the NFL. As I would use him in the NFL. Get him involved in the slot. Get him involved in different ways, because I think Jalen Reagor is great with the ball in his hands and can really separate. Underrated separator in this class.
Yeah, and he's also one of those guys where you have to. Now, a lot of people, the sort of dynasty community, will talk to you about market share and how much their receiving yards are as a portion of your team's total. And you're say Justin Jefferson this past season, you have 1,300 yards or whatever it was, but you passed for 6,000 yards. That's not a big market share.
No.
Jalen Reagor, 1,000 yards back in 2018. They only passed for 2,500 yards that year. So that was almost, that was 40% of the team's passing yards were going to him, and that that's much more. The market share is an indicative stat of, basically how featured you were in any given offense. And basically, he was their passing offense that year. When they were throwing down the football field, it was to him. So there is something to be said for that, and something to be said for the quarterback situation. Like we said, we've said it ad nauseum, but you'll see next week. He's a special athlete. Attacks the ball well down the football field. Caught almost 50% of his contested targets back in 2018. Now, it's worth questioning some of the bad things that happened this past season. 7 drops on 50 catchable. That's a worrisome rate. Some of his contested catches didn't show nearly as well in those. Obviously concerning, but I'm going to bank on what I saw as a sophomore. If you did as a sophomore, chances are you're probably going to be pretty damn good.
And I think with Jalen Reagor, some bring up that ball skills aren't there, didn't show up in contested catch situations in 2019, but you've seen it with him. He attacks the ball very well. Doesn't always win those or whatever it may be, but I think he approaches the ball in those situations at a very high level, and for that reason, I think you can project him as a guy that goes and gets the ball at the next level. Jumping to Brandon Ayuk, the Arizona State receiver. Some are former JUCO prospects, JUCO transfer, I believe. And he's high on PFF's rankings. I'll be honest with you, Mike. I need you to explain this to me, because I don't really. I'm not in love with Ayuk's tape.
So one, he's the guy who has the crazy wingspan. The wingspan of a 6'9"
Oh, that's right. 81 inches, right?
81
I was about to say
wingspan.
81 feet, but probably not.
I mean, if it's an actual, never mind. I was going to say an actual foot. It could be 8. No, that's also
Go ahead.
All right, let's edit that one out in the post. No, his explosives off. He's going to test really well. Probably a low 4.4s guy. Turns into a running back basically after the catch. Has one of the highest yards after the catch rates of any receiver in the country this past season. Doesn't run the crispest of routes. Really only a one-year wonder. He was seeding targets to N'Keal Harry last year, which obviously
he also didn't run a ton of different routes.
Yeah, and very much that offense is a slant go type of offense at Arizona State. What he was running. Not great at the catch point, despite that length, which was only 3 of 14 contested catches in his entire college career. That's obviously worrisome. But I think the athleticism and the body type and the fact that he's already this productive this early on, I think is still. I'll bet on that. I'll bet on the guy.
He needs to test well, though.
Yeah.
I want to see it. I think you see that some of that explosiveness, especially against off coverage. What he does after the catch, he can burn some people down. Didn't get an opportunity to see him at the Senior Bowl. Was flagged in the physical for flagged as a physical, whatever it was. But Brandon Ayuk did not participate in the Senior Bowl. I think he needed that. seeing him participate in the one-on-ones would have been big for me. Right now, Brandon Ayuk needs a big combine for me to go back to the tape and try and find things I like. Denzel Mims of Baylor, talk about a guy who blew up at the Senior Bowl. He rose up PFF's draft board by 20, 30 spots after dominating across a very diverse route tree at the Senior Bowl. I think Denzel Mims, not a diverse route tree at Baylor, didn't get a chance to see a ton of it, and then he goes to the Senior Bowl, really does dominate. I think Denzel Mims is one of my favorites in this class when you get to that day 2 type of option.
I want to see what he jumps at the combine, because he he makes some catches where he's just like towering over DBs, the way he can sky. Inconsistent with it, and they basically just pumped him targets this past year down the football field, giving him those sort of chances even if they weren't great. So he had 113 targets, only caught 66 of them. Some of that's on Charlie Brewer just being, butt cheeks this last year. But some of that's also on, he doesn't have great hands. Like, he had 18 drops over the past 2 years, 24 in his career, with only 186 receptions.
Those are focus drops, though. I mean,
it's a concerning rate.
You see the drops.
Over 10%.
Yeah, it's over 10%. I do agree it's a concern, but it's not as big of a concern when you see guys that don't have good ball skills. Because I do think Denzel Mims does approach the ball well.
Yeah, and it's very much concentration drops. But the word with him is explosiveness. Like, you see it again and again throughout his routes. He's a well-built 6'3", 215. This dude. He's got a lot going for him. And like I said, all these guys, these top guys right now, I think all within our top 35 players that we've mentioned. So we're high on this wide receiver class.
I mean, rightfully so. I mean, this receiver class is absurd. I mean, you saw that at the Senior Bowl. I mean, KJ Hill was really good. I mean, we're going to talk about him a little bit later in the podcast, but there was just so much talent in this receiver class. And I think Denzel Mims, like I said, one of my favorite options on day 2. I want to pull up a stat here. I want to dive into Denzel Mims right before we jump off, but go watch that game against Georgia. It was not a great game against Georgia and Oklahoma. Those last 2 games, he got locked up pretty bad. Parnell Motley, who was a combine snub, really stuck it to him in press man coverage in that Baylor game, that conference championship game. They also lost
their starting quarterback and just stopped.
True. No. That's true. That's true. But I think there's some tape late in his season where you could maybe see some concerns in Mims' game. But still one of my favorites. Let's jump to Michael Pittman Jr. of USC, another big receiver in this class. One of my favorite things to bring up with Pittman is when we did talk to him about the Senior Bowl, he's not going to get tagged as an elite separator like a Reagor, Ruggs, Judy, Lamb. And I brought that up. It's like, separation is king in the NFL. That's what evaluators want to see. What's your take? And he said, honestly, if I catch the ball, that means I was open. And I think that's a good take for Michael Pittman. Great in contested catch situations, great ball skills, physical, and wins with his physicality. I think he does catch a lot of footballs as well.
Yeah, he's not going to be your downfield guy. And that's why we're a little lower on him than the rest. But in terms of those underneath, intermediate, we're like Michael Thomas of the Saints. So it's kind of been like who we've said is sort of like what his best case scenario sort of is you separate so much on the underneath intermediate, and then even if you don't have a lot of separation, your QB still trusts you because you have such good ball skills, you're such big size, you will win at the catch point continually in that area. That's what Michael Pittman brings to the table. That's the kind of skill set he has. That's why he hauled in, almost 76% of his passes this year, 133 targets. He caught 101 of those.
Wow.
Like, that's a crazy rate for a guy. That's never happens. And he wasn't necessarily their screen guy. They weren't pumping him those sort of targets in USC this year. Those are just like underneath, intermediate, chain moving type of targets. He is your definition of a possession receiver. And he's very, 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 very good at that.
I think you mocked him in the second round of the Baltimore Ravens in a recent mock draft. I really do like that fit. Getting a bigger body receiver there that can block. I mean, you need receivers that can block in Baltimore. If there's one offense that needs a blocking receiver, it is Baltimore. Michael Pittman there. All right, jumping to Juwan Jennings. You really liked this guy before the Senior Bowl, and he kind of dropped a little bit after the Senior Bowl. Didn't separate at the level you wanted to see. Didn't have the week that others did have. But Juwan Jennings still fantastic after the catch at Tennessee. Had some of the highest yards after the catch per reception numbers we've seen in the PFF college era. Forced a ton of missed tackles. Former quarterback recruit turned receiver. Big bodied slot receiver. I really do like his fit in the NFL.
Yeah, so his numbers are obviously going to be not as good considering the passing offense he was in at Tennessee was not as good. And the guy switched from QB to wide receiver over the course of his career at Tennessee. Absurd after the catch. Just so talented, so good at getting off the line of scrimmage, too. Showed that at the Senior Bowl. 30 broken tackles this year on 59 catches. But he might run like a mid 4.6s.
Yeah.
He might run like a 4.65.
The speed was a concern in Mobile.
And he's big. He's 6'3", 208, but he's not like big, where it's like 6'3", 225, and you're like kicking dude's ass at the catch point. That's not going to be him. Like, he's good there, but not elite in that regard. So he's more of your big slot, but like you can throw screens to him and he'll make stuff happen after the catch. I don't know. I just think he's I want him on my football team. Like, I think there's a lot you can do with a guy like that.
Very simple.
I don't have a football team, but I want him on it.
That's all right. This next guy is a polarizing prospect, and I think that's an understatement. Tyler Johnson. Tyler Johnson of Minnesota was PFF's highest graded receiver in football this past year, and he's earned a 90.0 plus PFF receiving grade each of the past 2 seasons. Production speaks for itself.
Top 10 yards per route both year.
Top 10 in yards per route run each of the past 2 seasons, and also, I mean, his tape is good. Like, I think he can separate at a high level. Drops are a concern. He has some drops problems. We talked about that with him before the season started. He said that's my number one thing I want to get better at is drops. But releases are special. I think you've comped him to Devontae Adams at certain point. I think Tyler Johnson. I don't understand why people don't like this guy.
He's not gonna run fast. Probably like 4.6.
4.6, really?
Yeah,
man.
I mean, like, he's not going to break 4 or 5. Like, I don't think he's that fast. He plays a lot from the slot, and some of it is schemed-ish production. But he's so good at the line of scrimmage and so, like, shifty line. He's one of the best route runners in the country. The guy we're probably going to say next might be the best route runner in the country, but he's right up there with him and has 6'2", 200. It's good size. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the polarizing nature. Drops are a huge concern, though. Like, the drops, you're going to have to live with them. 24 drops, only 214 catches in his career. It's just going to be something you live with, but that's a small portion of the game.
You run a 4.6 though. I mean, now a comp that kind of comes to mind is Cooper Kupp.
Yeah,
like in terms of, like, Cooper Kupp, like, graded the line of scrimmage. That's where he creates his separation. He's not a burner by any means, but you find this guy with 2 or 3 yards of separation all the time. I think if you get into a receiver that is running above 4.6 or high 4.5s.
A what now?
This is a receiver that you can still win with at the next level. Drops are still an issue, but again, I don't see why Tyler Johnson is mocked as like this day 3 travesty like some others see him as.
Let's say Tyler Johnson, KJ Hill are very, very similar wide receivers. The next guy on our list. Okay. And I think we have them at similar, like, day 2, mid-day 2 grades. I would take them at the back end of the second, top of the third if I need a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, they're both very talented route runners. KJ Hill just put on a clinic at the Senior Bowl. Didn't get featured a ton in his offense this past year, but, like, when he's caught over 70% of his targets every year of his career, 75.6 for his entire career. He's just dude's very shifty along his routes, very nuanced. I think he's a very easy projection. Very Patriots-esque wideout.
Yeah, and I think you made a comp to like a Julian Edelman type. Like KJ Hill, I think that's a great comp. The Ohio State receiver that blew up the Senior Bowl, and I think when you go back to his tape, there was not I watched every single target. There was not a single target where he had press at the line of scrimmage. This guy just doesn't see it. Yeah. He just does not see press at the line of scrimmage. When we went to the Senior Bowl, every one-on-one rep, or nearly all of them, starts with press, and the dude dominated, was toasting fools. Isang Bassey's still thinking about it. Nightmares of KJ Hill, but KJ Hill looked very good at the Senior Bowl.
The speed's bad, though.
No,
Another guy,
again,
4.6.
But, like, he's got good change of direction, good agility, and can create separation early in the route. And I think that has value at the next level. Justin Jefferson, another guy that didn't see a ton of press, ton of press coverage, but has all this production, really blows up with his move to the slot at LSU. Also blows up because Joe Burrow blew up and was putting the ball perfectly. He ranked in the top 3 in percentage of targets that were accurate or accurate plus in PFF's ball charting. That helps when you have Joe Burrow under center. But Justin Jefferson, I wrote a piece on him a few weeks back. I think don't buy into the production blow up. Yes, he's a crafty, creative slot receiver that can create separation and find holes in zone, but this isn't a guy that can create separation as an outside receiver, and I wouldn't draft him ahead of guys that could.
Yeah, his ball skills were awesome, though, in terms of contested situations this past year. Again, some of that's Burrow putting it in the spot where he can catch it in those situations, but he hauled in 12 of 13 contested targets. That is one of the highest rates I've ever seen. Very good after the catch as well. Broke 23 tackles on 111 catches this year. I think he's just solid across the board. He doesn't do a ton, though, that gets me like super excited, but he's also young, not even 21 years old yet. So we might be a little low on this guy. I'll be low on the guy, though, that I haven't seen necessarily beat coverage consistently. Though. I'll gladly, I'll be too late on that guy.
I'm interested to see how he tests. I agree with you on the ball skills, and I think he's very good in that regard. And that's going to help him in like this kind of slot role at the next level, where he's kind of maybe sees more contested targets than he did see at the end of, at the college level. But I think Justin Jefferson still great from a ball skills perspective. KJ Hamler, another slot receiver at the next level, but you want to talk about
not so great from the ball skills.
Not so great from a ball skills, but talk about speed. I mean, this guy's got ridiculous speed, ridiculous athleticism. I think he's fantastic after the catch. He's a guy you want to get involved near the line of scrimmage or, slot fade. Get him a slot fade, but you're going to have to put it right on him. Because I'll tell you right now, this guy does not have a great catch radius and can sometimes approach the ball pretty poorly.
12 drops and 68 catchable for his career, for this past season. It's concerning. That's a monster rate. Like, I think that's the highest rate of any guy on this list, which is I mean, they weren't as big of an issue, but still 4 drops and 46 catchable back in 2018. So that's not good though. Still, like that's still like, So he's just so explosive though with the ball in his hands.
He's fun. I hate to use fun to watch, but KJ Hamler is fun to watch. This guy, when he gets the ball in his hands, is a difference maker.
Yeah, I mean, but he's not your outside. He's not going to be Deshaun Jackson where you can line him up on the outside and wins down the field. You got to get him into space. They have to get that speed one-on-one with safety for him to win. But the speed is legit.
McCole Hardman-esque, maybe? I don't know. I think there's similar in that.
He's more in that vein than the Deshaun Jackson vein.
All right, Van Jefferson of Florida, another guy that had a really, really good Senior Bowl. I was very impressed with his route running ability. I think he's a solid overall receiver. I don't think he has a ton of greatness in his game. But Van Jefferson, I think, so a lot of people bring up, or evaluators have brought up, look at his LSU tape. The first half of that game, the dude gets locked up. Like, no chance against these LSU cornerbacks. And then the first series of the third quarter, right out of the half, he has a couple nice back shoulders against Derek Stanley, and then he sets up a nice slant release and gets a couple slants against him too. I think you saw what Van Jefferson can do at the top of his game in that LSU tape. But I will say this, you don't see it consistently.
Yeah.
You rarely see him beating cornerbacks consistently with separation.
Yeah, so father is a wide receiver coach.
Father. I don't know if I've ever heard you use the word father.
Well, it's accurate. His father is a wide receiver coach. So he's, as one would think, he's a very nuanced route runner. He's very good in that regard. I don't think he's special athletically. I think he's still could stand to put on some more weight. Like, he's very slightly built still. Doesn't win a ton at the catch point. Like, contact around the route really stopped this guy in his tracks. It was really not anything in that regard, and hasn't added a lot after the catch, which you'd think, shifty guy, good route runner, only 17 broken tackles on 174 career catches is a low rate for a college wide receiver. So concerns in those regards. He's just kind of like, if you get him on day 3, like he can be a nice number 2 receiver.
All right, jumping to John Hightower of Boise State. You really like this guy going into the 2019 season, and for good reason. It earned an 85.3 PFF receiving grade in 2018. This past year dropped to 73.2, but still has the speed, still a deep threat. I think battled some quarterback woes at Boise State, to put it lightly.
Yeah, freshman.
But I do think John Hightower is not talked about enough in this class.
Yeah, I mean, he's got legit deep speed again. Another guy who's probably going to run sub 4.4. Like, he has that straight line juice and has some size to him too at 6'2".
Straight line juice. I like that.
Straight line juice. Use it. Steal it.
I might steal it.
But yeah, I think that's what, if you're drafting John Hightower, that's what you're drafting for. And also, like we were talking about, Hamler's like a scheme open guy. He was winning outside receiver down the football field. You saw him get off press and then stack receivers down the football field. He can do that. He can be your deep threat from the outside, not just your scheme guy open from the slot sort of thing.
All right, Devin Duvernay of Texas. We're moving here through quickly. Remember, if you want
27 of these guys.
Yeah, if you want more analysis on these receivers, go to PFF.com on February 24th. There's literally a 3-page profile on every one of these guys, and over 250 total prospects going to be available to Edge and Elite subscribers. You can get it as low as $9.99. Support PFF. Get the draft guide. All right, moving to Devin Duvernay. Dude had a ridiculous production because he was fed the football from the slot in a very pass-heavy offense at Texas. Caught 105 balls from 129 targets on his way to an 89.6 PFF receiving grade. Forced a ton of missed tackles, 23 forced missed tackles. Didn't really wow me at the Senior Bowl. I don't think this is a guy that you put on the outside and he can win on one-on-one coverage. But what he does after the catch is impressive. I think he's got a stocky build, 5'11", 210. Not easy to bring down in the open field, in my opinion. But again, a guy, sometimes I hate to say it, but just a guy in the slot a little bit.
I feel like he's another guy in the Lynn Bowden-esque vein to where throw this guy at running back a little bit. He's 5'11", 210. He looks like a running back.
I am with you.
He has pretty legit speed. Former track guy. Very good ball skills. He has only 6 drops on 181 catchable in his entire college career. Like, he is very good in that regard. But he's just him running routes was just, you could tell he's still so raw. And this, I think, the reason why it took him until this past year, his senior year, to even get any sort of targets. He had more actually catches this year on screens than he did catches in all. He had 42 screen receptions this past year and 41 catches in all of 2018. So he very much took that slot role in Texas' offense where they kind of fed him. So the numbers are a little phony in that regard. His 105 catches are a little
faux-duction, as we call it.
Yeah,
faux production.
A little pumped. But I do think he is. That's who he is, though. He is your screen guy. He is your slot guy who will provide something after the catch and has the speed to challenge safeties, but not a nuanced route runner.
So here's the thing with that. What percentage of your plays in a given game do you want to run slot receiver screens or slot crossers? Not a ton.
Yeah.
Not a ton. I'll tell you that right now, especially when it's 3rd and long and you're trying to actually make a big play here.
Yeah.
And with Devin Duvernay, I think we brought this a handful of times up on the podcast, but I'll put the exclamation point on it again. Moving these smaller slot types at receiver to running back is a very good decision. Get a ton of value out of a receiver by pushing him at running back. A running back with good receiving ability that will undoubtedly get put on linebackers and safeties is a good thing for your offense. I think we don't see it enough.
Yeah, I was just say that's like the wave in college football is these guys who can go back and forth. You saw Memphis do it a ton. I think we're going to see
Tony Pollard and Antonio Gibson both had that similar role.
I think we're going to see that come to the NFL.
I'm waiting for it. I'm really excited for it, actually. Staying with Texas, right under Devin Duvernay is Colin Johnson, the big monster receiver for Texas. Doesn't have a ton of straight line juice, straight line nectar, if you will, but he does have. He's
got straight line like milk.
Yeah. It's not a ton of speed. Colin Johnson, and I will say this, he's a big dude, right? Justin Herbert is taller and heavier than Colin Johnson. That I found absurd to me at the Senior Bowl. Justin Herbert needs design runs at the next level. I'll bang the table for that now.
Get this guy playing in the backfield.
Talk to me about Colin Johnson.
The Colin Johnson's straight line you just talked about, he almost is scampering down the football field. I don't know, the way he runs.
Dude, his releases are
awkward.
weird.
His releases aren't good. Any guy gets his hands on him and he's not getting off. But he'll show some physicality at the top of the route. He's obviously at 6'6", 220. He's going to be able to get above. He's going up against Isang Bassi, and it's not going to end well for that guy. So, but that's why you don't have those smaller cornerbacks in the NFL. So he's not going to have that physical dominance that he can show. I don't know. I don't love. There's not much I fall in love with outside of just
him being big. Yeah, he's big. Exactly. He can climb the ladder because he's already at the top of it. But with Colin Johnson, you sent me a couple of his releases. He does this back step release where he takes a little bit of a stutter step behind the line of scrimmage and then comes back up. But it's not fast enough for the cornerback to really react, and it just ends up looking awful.
He goes back.
You need to drop some of those on the timeline.
I actually do.
Drop some of those on the timeline. I'll slap you a little RT if you're feeling it. Anyway, Austin Mack, Ohio State, the next receiver on this list. We're going to burn through these next few guys here, all of which will be in the PFF 2020 NFL Draft Guide come February 24th. But Austin Mack came to the Senior Bowl, was a late addition, I think, to the Senior Bowl, and we didn't think much of him going into that week, but I thought he looked good. These Ohio State receivers don't see a ton of press coverage, but when they do, I think they can actually run some routes. Yeah,
he runs good routes, has solid hands, just very much a guy as an athlete is the biggest thing, and no production whatsoever. He got absolutely, it's not obviously a death knell with how much talent has been at Ohio State, but he's been really bad over the course of his career in that regard. So you just don't have a big sample size to work with when you don't have a guy catching a lot of passes. To me, he's kind of he's one of those guys that ends up a UDFA and then makes a roster, and it's a third wide receiver who's how was that guy a UDFA? He's actually could do some stuff, but you're never gonna get too excited about him. He's always gonna be your 3, and you're never gonna be oh man, he's never going to go for more than 800 yards. All right, next guy on the list, Calvin Johnson. Antonio Gandy Golden. It kind of jumped to it, but I know. So I saw something on
Freudian slip. I saw something on your timeline where I don't know who the analyst was, but someone was
James Jones, a former NFL wide receiver who played against Calvin Johnson,
and was comparing Antonio Gandy Golden to could be the next Calvin Johnson. I find that honestly absurd. I will say this: I want to talk positives with Antonio Gandy Golden before we get into how he's not Calvin Johnson, but. He did surprise me with some straight line speed at the Senior Bowl. Yes. I think he separated well at the Senior Bowl. He did not.
He'll probably run sub 4.5.
Yeah,
he was 6'4", 220.
He was a Liberty receiver that could have easily shown up and looked a lot like a Liberty receiver. But he actually showed out against Power 5 competition. Former gymnast. I know you used to do some gymnastics too in Chicago, but Antonio Gandy Golden was impressive, I think, at the Senior Bowl, and for that reason elevated his stock slightly, in my opinion. Not to Calvin Johnson levels. I don't see him as the number 2 overall pick, but I do think Antonio Gandy Golden could be a pleasant surprise on day 3.
He was hard to evaluate because the competition level was so bad, and they would just throw him jump balls again.
Yes.
138 targets, and it was just like, go get it, go get it, go get it. And so like
you're the only athlete on the field.
Yeah. And so he did end up, 79 catches, 1,397 yards this past year, 10 touchdowns, broke 16 tackles. But those are kind of phony numbers that you just don't really know what to do with. But I do think at 6'4", 220, he will be a deep threat at the next level to some degree. And I don't think he's your possession receiver. So we talked about Michael Pittman being good on the underneath intermediate range. I don't see that as nearly as much with Antonio Gandy-Golden, but I think he gets off the line of scrimmage better than a lot of big wide receivers, and I think he has a lot more speed than a lot more big wide receivers. So there's something to work with there. Now, where do we draft that? I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah, but probably end of day 2, early day 3.
Isaiah Hodgins, Oregon State product. This guy's hard to fall in love with for me. I think he's graded well, specifically because he does well in contested catch situations compared to other receivers in this class.
He's absurdly good. I mean, compared to anyone. He has probably the best ball skills of any wide receiver in the country.
And here's what I'll say right after that.
Jeudy, Lamb, whatever. He has 3 drops on 179 career catch ball, and he's playing on the outside, going down the football field. Those are ridiculous numbers.
Best ball skills in the country, best ball skills in this class, because he needs them, though. This guy doesn't create separation to save his life. I mean, this guy's going to really struggle to create separation at the level you need to have consistently open targets at the next level.
Yeah, he is. I mean, Marcus Colston is kind of like his upshot.
That's a great upside, high-end comp. Like if you can get to Marcus Colston levels, that's your ideal role at the next level.
Yeah, I think the Saints would love this guy in the slot, or Drew Brees would love this guy in the slot, just because he can adjust off-target passes really well. If he is open, like him getting open is the very difficult part. He is so,
and that's why we're not as high on him. I mean, Isaiah Hodgins, you say best ball skills in the class, and yet he's still not even in the top 10 of our receiver rankings because separation still matters much more. The athleticism and that ability to create separation before and after the catch is much more valuable at the next level than contested catch ability and ball skills. But he still's got them,
and he has absolutely nothing after the catch. I mean, he has averaged 3.2 yards after the catch for his career. Broken 11 tackles on 176 catches.
So his upside might be year 8 Marcus Colston.
Yeah.
Because Marcus Colston at least had a little juice in the beginning.
Yeah.
Some juice, some nectar, if we want to get to there. But
it's such a weird, he's a weird prospect.
Yeah.
And I don't know necessarily how to evaluate him because it'll just limit you. Like, he's not going to get off the line of scrimmage. He's not going to separate. And at that point,
can you consistently win with him?
Exactly. I don't know.
Gabriel Davis, UCF, the next receiver on this books here. He has some straight line juice. He's got some speed down the sideline, but after that, I think he's a bit raw.
Yeah, super raw. Like, his routes stink, and he's running a limited route tree, and the routes still stink. Which is
man,
so he runs that UCF
that's
route
like Corey
tree,
Coleman,
which is it's like the Baylor route tree actually. So it's the go slant post is like accounted for 80% of his yards.
And if you're sloppy on the goal slant post, you're going to be sloppy when you're trying to get a little more unique, or you're trying to take some things another level.
He's running slants where rounding a slant. Rounding a slant's difficult to do. Rounding slants. They're just very sloppy routes. Crazy production, but another guy where only caught 56% of his targets, but 128 targets, 72 catches, 1,241 yards, 12 touchdowns. I think he's very good at the catch point. I really like his physicality that he plays with down the football field, and he probably will run at 6'3", 212. He might run sub 4.5, might be like 4.45 guy. So he has some speed to him, but again, he just feasted on a level of competition and kind of that UCF offense with the routes they're making him run. He's not as good as those numbers might suggest. He's just super raw at this point. So that's a day 3 kind of guy, in my opinion.
All right, Tyree Cleveland, the Florida wideout. He was a late add to the Senior Bowl. Had some impressive reps, but if you go back to his production at Florida, this guy doesn't have a season with more than 25 receptions. Only 79 receptions in 4 years at Florida. There's not a lot to go off of in his tape, but I mean, he does have speed, though. I think he's legit fast.
Yeah, he has some speed, but he wasn't separating. It wasn't, I don't know how to describe it. There wasn't a second gear to him to where he gets on top of a guy and then he's going even faster. He was very much, I described him, unfortunately, as just a guy. He got the just a guy label.
Which is never good.
Never good.
You never want to be in that tier. Chase Claypool, not just a guy. This guy's a monster. I think he should. Here's my take on Chase Claypool. He needs to beef up another 10, 15 pounds and play tight end. Why not? Tell me why not.
Dude, if you're not a top because all of a sudden, like the league needs any tight end that can move, whatsoever. Like Darren Waller does it, and all of a sudden 1,000 yards.
Dude, he was a top 3 tight end in yards per out run and in PFF receiving grade, and he's a former receiver convert that had a rough road to the NFL and still producing at a high level.
I mean, he's 6'4", 230. That's like one trip to a Chinese buffet.
Yeah, true.
You get up to tight end size.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like just skip the cardio.
Skip the
cardio 1 week. Exactly.
You go to CeeDee's Pizza. You drop $8 on the unlimited pizza, and then you just go all in. And next thing you know, you're an NFL tight end. That's the road it takes for Chase Claypool.
And it shouldn't be like that. And he's would offer much more value there.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's not going to win consistently on the outside at that size. He had Alohi Gilman put him on the ground and press coverage at the Senior Bowl. Alohi Gilman's a safety
and small.
And like that's
his best. Chase Claypool's best routes at the Senior Bowl looked like WWE moves. Like he was throwing kids to the ground and like creating separation in that way. But like again, he's not at tight end. You start to really like this prospect. At receiver, you have concerns about his ability to separate, and his ball skills aren't on the level of Isaiah Hodgins, to where you can't fail to separate and not be that great from a contested catch.
It's like what we're saying about like Lynn Bowden and Devin Duvernay. It's like if you're just at wide receiver, you're not offering me that much that some of these other guys aren't.
Yeah.
If you've got that versatility, now we're talking.
All right, Courtney Davis, Texas A&M. Give me the skinny on him. We got to move quick.
I mean, he is skinny. He's just skinny, not physical at all along his routes. Has some speed, has some athleticism,
some foot quickness. I do think he's got good foot speed, but I don't think he puts it all together. Is my thing. I watched a ton of his tape. I mean, people reaching out saying, "Hey, you got to watch Courtney Davis. He's got this foot speed. He has this athleticism." But like, you see some impressive releases, but why is the cornerback still there? You see some of this, you see some good speed down the sideline, but he's still getting blanketed. And I think some of that is just not putting it together. I think the physicality is a concern. I think contact, you mentioned. I think something you mentioned that I think I need to get better at evaluating receivers is how does contact affect you along the route? Contact affects Courtney Davis a whole lot down the route, and I think you see that.
You better be quick as shit. I don't think he is.
Yep. Brian Edwards, I think he's been comped on the timeline to Michael Thomas, or is it just Randy Moss? I don't know. But Brian Edwards of South Carolina, a bigger receiver that I honestly don't love his tape. So much of his production came on screens. If you're going to talk to me about
half of his catches were screens.
If you're going to talk to me about dominator rating or market share, dude, this guy had so many screen passes thrown to him, it was absurd. I think it was over 40% of his targets over the past 2 years. Like,
over half his catches this year were screens.
And a lot of the things I'll do is like watch for cornerbacks and receivers is go into PFF Ultimate and filter to targets of 5+ yards. And this guy doesn't have a ton of them. A lot of them are coming at or near the line of scrimmage, and that's just so hard to project. Can you win on a vertical route tree at the next level?
Yeah, his average depth target was only 8.5 yards down the field. You got some other guys in his class to like 15. It was really short. He was not exceptional in contested situations. Only 6 of 13, big bodied. And he's pretty athletic, but I just don't see any, like 6'3", 215. I don't see much nuance route running. And again, for over half your catches to be screens, he was not winning down the football field a ton.
3 receivers left. Bear with us here on the Wednesday edition of 2-for-1 Drafts. We're going to start with Donovan Peoples-Jones, the Michigan receiver that I've seen called a first-round talent in this class.
I might differ on him more than like any other wide receiver in terms of like.
I can't get on board with it. I can't.
He just does, like, people are saying it's the quarterback situation that cost him there. It's like, no. He cost himself. Like, he wasn't
well, I will say that Shea Patterson wasn't good.
Yeah, Shea Patterson wasn't good, but he wasn't, like, open or getting open. You go to the Ohio State game where he had a bunch of chances and he was dropping them left and right. I think
that was a bad game for DPJ.
Yeah, and that's like, there's your one chance you get against legit top-flight cornerbacks, and you're, pooping the bed again.
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect? 3 of 12 targets he caught in that game.
That's bad.
Yeah.
How many drops?
3.
3 drops? Jeez. And with DPJ, are we just scouting that he was a 5-star recruit with a good acronym? I don't know. Because, like, acronym scouting is real. Like, DPJ is hot. Like, I really do like saying that at the next level. But, again, if you're not separating, if you're not producing on the football field, I got to drop you down the board a little bit. DPJ, though, I can get on board with the nickname. Kalijah Lipscomb. Going into this season, I said, look for Kalijah Lipscomb because there's this play on a screen where he, like, makes this guy, like, eats his own face mask on this play. Like, he doesn't even know where he is after this juke move by Kalijah Lipscomb. And you even see it. There's
after the catch.
There's a slant against Christian Fulton. He got locked up that entire game, but there's one slant against Christian Fulton where he makes a nice contested catch and then makes the safety miss and goes for a touchdown in that game where Vanderbilt got blown out.
Yeah.
You see what he can do after the catch, but before the catch, don't count on this guy.
Exactly.
Making this guy miss
18 broken tackles on 45 catches this year. That's a crazy high rate. But like a majority of the catches were screens or underneath scheme stuff. Does not win down the football field. Slightly built guy he actually has some good speed to win downfield, but like another guy.
Older receiver too, right?
How old? 22 already.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know how you win with him at the next level as like a primary target. I think he's a depth piece that.
Yeah.
I've read some of the interviews with him and stuff, like a leader type, a guy that's gonna be great in the locker room. I think on special teams, day 3, you feel good about it. Elijah Lipscomb kind of already comes in with an older character, but again, don't expect this guy to be this like true number 1 or even like a number 1 slot guy at the next level. Last guy on the list, and I don't think he's our last ranked receiver. These last few have been a little bit jumbled in order, but James Prochet of SMU, I think had a bad Senior Bowl week.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest. Did not create a ton of separation.
And if you had a bad Senior Bowl week, considering the corners that were there,
oh man,
that doesn't bode well for you.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And he did go against Troy Pride a ton though, and Troy Pride was locking people down.
What it basically told me was, the guy is 5'11", 195 or something like that. Like was on the short side, but you can sometimes, if you have enough juice, you can win with that on the outside. To me, it told me he's slot only.
Yep.
At the next level. And
slot only with great ball skills.
That's the thing. It's like you can win with a guy like that because his ball skills are so good. Over the course of his career,
they're
only
stupid. 9
drops on 311 catches. So the production was off the charts for him. Attacks the football in the air. I think he'll be a quarterback's best friend because he's not going to be hanging you out to dry. On a lot of stuff. Like he'll take hits. Has no problem with that.
Physical, tough receiver.
Scored 15 times this past year on 110 catches. Like he gets to the end zone, but not super athletic. Already 23 years old. You just got to know who he is.
I mean, in preparation for the Senior Bowl, I watched a ton of his tape, and I came away with, created some separation here and there against some bad, I think, AAC competition. But this guy, I think every game had a highlight reel catch in a contested catch situation. And when you're that small and you're doing it consistently, you really do love those ball skills. Older receiver. I'd rather have a James Prochet than a Elijah Lipscomb, and I might be on board 100%. With having a James Prochet over a DPJ. I don't know. That's kind of where I stand. Anyway,
so let's pay extra for that.
All right, that's going to do it for the Wednesday edition of 2-for-1 Drafts. I know we went over a lot. I think 27 receivers in this class that'll be in the latest or the newest update of the 2020 NFL Draft Guide. Make sure to tune into that on PFF.com February 24th. This has been Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, 2-for-1 Drafts.